morning, and welcome back to the podcast, Evil Dungeon Master Universe Podcast. I am your host, Evil Dungeon Master Vince, and it is Monday. Time for a new week, time for a new podcast. Hopefully, everybody's doing well, had a great weekend. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about DC Universe, the role playing game. Now, I've talked about Mayfair's DC Heroes. Don't forget to like the video, comment below, and subscribe to the channel or follow the channel along Spotify, Apple, or wherever you're hearing this thing. But anyway, evildm.com, that's my website. All right, all the cheap pops out of the way. The DC Universe role-playing game, not to be confused with DC Universe Online game or DC Universe Infinity, the comic book reader app. They use that name DC Universe way too much, but this one was done in 99. It is part of the D6 Legends system, which is a completely different system compared to the rest of the systems West End Games had designed during the time. This was kind of a reattempt at doing the system to see if they can get it. They had their regular D6 system, which we're all familiar with Star Wars and Ghostbusters and stuff like that. Then they had their Master Book system, which was Indiana Jones, Tank Girl, Species, and there was one more I can't remember, uh, which was okay. It was kind of a complicated system, but then we have the Legend system by D6, which was kind of looking at it. It's like how Shadowrun does target numbers, or how White Wolf does target numbers, and you count up the target number of successes, and you move forward. The more successes, the more you can do it. There's also a wild die. So the game had its own special dice, Superman symbols and Darkseid symbols on it. That came with the actual box set. It came in a box set. It was a nice box set, actually. The artwork inside it was really good. Early, I should say, late 90s, early 2000 type style artwork for DC. Wasn't too bad. So what you could do is, with the dice, you could use regular dice. You didn't have to use their special dice, but on a D6, if you rolled a 1 to 2, that was considered a failure, and a 4 to 6 was a success. Okay. One dice is always a wild die, but rolled a little bit differently. The wild die, 1 is a critical failure, a 2 is considered just a failure, and a 3 to 5 is a success, which you count towards the successes, and a 6 is a critical success. And you roll it again, obviously, like a wild die in D6. This game was well handled for when talking about street level heroes, Teen Titan level, or maybe, I don't know, if you're playing a game of just the Flash and his Rogues Gallery, or Batman and his Rogues Gallery, or maybe even Green Arrow and the Rogues Gallery. When it came to the cosmic level, it was just not well balanced at all. And West End Games pumped out quite a bit of supplements for this. They had the DEO Agents book, the DEO Agents Aliens Guide. They had Gotham. They had Metropolis. They had small little guides, like a travel guides. If back in the day when you used to go into New City, you can get like a travel guide. They even made up fake little travel guides for Metropolis and Gotham, so you can pretend that you have something with a map and everything for your city. The artwork was done well. The writing was done well. The system was just not really well received. The one thing that really kind of I didn't like about the books of the system is that when flipping through it, it felt like a comic book page. Now, I get the idea what they were doing. They were trying to mimic a comic book or feel of a comic book at the time, but the pages were so thin that you would think they would rip if you used them too much. And in fact, I got another copy of my core rulebook for this game, because it came with a core rulebook and a bunch of other books in there, that I reprinted so I would not rip the pages because they were so thin, and it's just not worth it. So, one thing I did like about it is that it had a trend of these books back then with D6 and a lot of other games. I think some of them stopped doing it, but there was a solo adventure in there, 13 pages, that taught you how to play the game in a small sense, not a big sense, but it followed along the trend with Mayfair's DC Heroes. They did the same thing with the Batman game, first edition, second, and third, of a little solo adventure, and then they tell you how to beat the game, play the game. And I did like those things. Solo adventures are a lot of fun. Again, I like solo role playing, so the idea of learning the game with solo adventuring is perfect. I've noticed that Call of Cthulhu, the new edition, has a nice, with their starter box set, has a nice adventure in there, like a really thick packet of I think it's called Against the Flame or something, that teaches you how to play the book while solo and step by step process. And I think that's amazing. I like that they took the time to do that, because not everybody grasps rules by just reading them and then hoping it works out, but works out playing well. I see a lot of complaints about this game because of the artwork. I don't think the artwork is really bad. Hmm. So the D6 system, when you build it, you have so many dice to distribute, and the dice levels go from 1 to 5. 1 meaning like kind of like your street level of Batman, or maybe around that type. 65 dice to distribute, and level 5, which is considered like Superman, you get 85. So there's only a 20 dice difference between the levels. Not that big of a deal. You also have a mandatory advantages and disadvantages section, because I noticed that when WEG started getting more mature towards the end, they started implementing the more advantages and disadvantages as kind of a mandatory thing to do. I don't know. I like it to a certain point. Advantages and disadvantages. I don't like the fact that you have to have them. I like it more so that you can pick them that help round out your character. Now, advantages always are good. Disadvantages help round your character because you get some really cool ideas for your character to make him better than just a cookie cutter guy that you're playing in a superhero game. Maybe he has a limp. Maybe he has, a bad eye or something like that. Just little cool quirks that you can add, and it helps the game move forward a little bit. The game has 6 attributes: reflexes, coordination, physique, knowledge, perception, and presence, with the appropriate skill being attached to each, which you're familiar with. These are pretty much familiar attributes. Yeah, for D6. I don't think there's anything really different. Perception, presence, that's what they have most of the D6 games. Though they do consider coordination and reflexes the same, and for some people, though they do fall into different categories depending on how you look at it. It really depends on how you do it. There's also a decent amount of powers in this book, though some of the powers are lacking some example of usage in them. You could probably chalk it up to them thinking that it's DM fiat or GM fiat, whatever you want to call it, or use your damn imagination. The Green Lantern powers, I remember being one of them. It's just defined as energy manipulation, but there's nothing really expanded upon with that power. No real detail for that power. No examples, because there is, when you flip to the power, there's a little bit of a description of it, and sometimes they give you examples of how it's used. But with Green Lantern's power, just any manipulation. Basically the thing. You read the books, you read the comics, you know how he works. Go out, have at it. Let your GM figure it out. I mean, that's the only thing I got from that. Flash's ability of super speed gave him so many different actions per game that it was almost impossible for the Flash to lose. So you can see at the higher level you scale these things up, the more broken this game was. And I don't even think they play tested this game to the fullest. I think they just got the DC license and churned this out with this new system as fast as possible to see what they can do, because they churned out quite a bit of books. Justice Society of America is another one I can think of offhand that's on my shelf. An actual book dedicated to Gotham with Batman, along with the little tourist guide one. So there's a lot of things you could do with this game, just not what you really want. Another complaint that I had about this was there was no benchmarks. You know how like DC Heroes Mayfair gave you some type of benchmarks for attributes, like a 5 was this or a 10 was that. There was no like anything in this as far as what superhero power has what level, this or that. There was nothing to judge it on. You had to kind of judge it on by looking at the 16 heroes and 20 villains that they gave you inside the book. So if that's what you got, if you got the box set, that's all you had. Your That's all you had access to. There were some websites around the time, not right away, probably around more of 2001, 2000 around, that actually did a ton of write ups for DC Universe Online. Not online, DC Universe. And they're actually still available. I'm looking right now. It's actually still available right now. You can find it. It's kind of buried, but you could find it and just get a whole bunch. The person did anything from Marvel all the way through DC Universe and gave some pretty good stats of what he thought, maybe rewrote some of the things. This wasn't a very popular game. I guess West End Games at this time was kind of falling apart and hoping that this would help getting a recognized license, because they were starting to get weird licenses at this time. They got Xena and Hercules, which is another game with this legend system that they did that didn't work out too well. They had Men in Black at one point, which I think I've talked about, but that used the regular D6 system. They had Tank Girl, they had World of Indiana Jones, they had Species the movie, which I don't know where they got that from, but they got that. And they were just, I guess they were falling apart, and they were just grasping at straws to figure out what they wanted to do with their company. And then it finally just went under. And then Eric Gibson had purchased the company and brought it back under Purgatory Publishing, I think it was called, or Purgatory, yeah, something like that, and started to bring the company back to rebuild it. And well, that kind of bombed when I think they were trying to do Torg. I don't remember exactly. I was doing a podcast at the time when they brought it back called D6 Radio, and I would have Eric on my podcast quite a bit, talk about it, help promote it, because I'm a big fan of D6, so I have almost all the D6 stuff. I think minus Tank Girl. I think that's the only one I don't have. Oh, Tales from the Crypt. That was the other one. They had a Tales from the Crypt with the Master System, which was just ridiculous. I'll have to talk about Tales from the Crypt RPG one time, because that's a great talk. Anyway, I'm gonna head out. That's you have a good week. Tomorrow's podcast, not tomorrow, Wednesday's podcast should have DM Will back again. DM will probably be a semi-regular on this podcast. We'll talk about certain things. Will likes the podcast, so I invited him to come on at least once a week when he's free, and we'll chat about gaming together. So you'll have a two-person babble fest. Well, I'll be babbling. He'll be giving out information. Hopefully you've enjoyed. Keep it original. Keep it old school. Remember, there is no drama. There is no clickbait. Only gaming here on this channel. Good night and God bless everybody.